Today, we're here to talk about UTMs. Why are they still important? Why you should still be using them? And also what the platforms have done to make it a lot easier to incorporate them. I'm sure all of us remember, the times we had to use an Excel sheet. We're finally done building. We had to enter the campaign URLs. And of course, the UTM tracker sheet had to be developed. And that's when you take the actual landing page, right? And then you enter the ad set, creative, the keyword term, all that stuff. And at the very end of it, it spits out that line of code, that tracking code, if you will, and you drop that within your campaigns. We've all been there and it takes a long time. Those days are gone. It's actually a lot more streamlined. And we're going to talk about what those changes are. And these have been incorporated for a while. This isn't anything too new, but I think it's something that we should probably talk about as a whole for this channel. So let's go ahead and get started. The meaning of the word UTM actually comes from Urchin Tracking Module, which I think is very interesting. I never got the background on that. One day I should probably do a video on that, but that's what it stands for. And it still has limited accuracy, right? It's not the be all end all, but then again, all site served based enhanced measurement is limited, right? And that's just because we're in a Cold War, my friends. We're in a Cold War with, in the middle of it with Google and Apple right now butting heads, right? And, you have a situation where, Google's paying Apple to be part of their ecosystem by being the first browser, if you will, for search, et cetera, on all iPhones, right? Then you have Apple coming back and stripping the URLs, right, of any of this kind of stuff, of the metadata, so it can't be tracked by advertisers. And that goes back to iOS 14 and a half, and it goes back to the iOS 17 update, which strips any links opened by Safari as well as iMail. So something just to keep top of line. The one thing I'll say is this. You should be using both. Like with Cappy, it's best practices with Facebook is you recommend you do both. You do site served and you do server based. So that way it's deduped on the back end. Basically, Google's the same way, my friends. You're incorporating that GTM code. However, but that's all picking up the data layer and feeding it back to Google, which provides that enhanced measurement. But you're also doing those UTM codes to provide exactly where it was in the ecosystem that those particular campaigns developed. And I think that's actually why the platforms kind of stood up and said, hey, enough of the site code stuff. Like, we're going to actually build the UTM code parameters within our platform. And we're going to talk about that. Right now, there is some limited attribution with redirects. It's also a little bit of over-attribution. And then, of course, we talked about iOS 17. And then, of course, the API connections that I was talking about, right? So, again, both should be used, but they're deduped on the platform side, which is good. Let's go a little bit further. And let's talk about what UTMs track. So here they track the campaign, which associates with the traffic from the marketing effort. And it also tracks a specific campaign name, right? The medium indicates the marketing medium, such as email or cost per click. Source identifies where traffic originates, right? Whether it's that search engine, newsletter, or Facebook or Instagram or Pinterest or whatever. And term is used, of course, for paid traffic. Now, there is a big difference right now between what we did with GA4 and then what was going on with Universal Analytics, right? And with Universal Analytics, it was actually real time. However, there is more of a delay now with GA4, and roughly that's about 48 to 72 hours. So in this case, what you do is doesn't reported until it's 48 hours later. And the first place I look in GA4 is within the traffic acquisition piece. That's, okay, where's all the traffic coming from? Where is it? Where are all those clicks coming from? And that's where you actually identify the campaign and all this other stuff and the source, the UTM source parameter and all that other stuff. So that's where I first look. And then I back it out into the events and see, okay, which UTM parameters were contributing with events, like in terms of source and all that other stuff. However, GA4, like I was saying, has more of a delay. So when you do this and it doesn't show anything for 12 hours, even 24 hours, that's common. then one more thing. Oh yeah. So here I want to show what exactly is going on, right? And this is what I was talking about. For the custom parameter, this is actually, and this is for Google, you enter in the source, Google ad, medium search, campaign search test, right? Now, this is probably not too accurate, right? You probably use Google. Medium would be, I guess that'd be Google search, but just intents and purposes, I placed it here. Then, of course, you have the tracking template at the top. Now, this is where we need to kind of pay attention, because on the tracking template is where you have this particular code, this code right here. This stands for landing page URL with the brackets, question mark, source, bracket, underscore source, which goes back to the custom parameter. So it's telling the source, but the underscore source within the custom parameter to feedback that custom naming convention you just put. And it does that for medium. You see how it does that for medium right here? And then the underscore medium, right? Because then it feeds back to the custom parameter and campaign. Now you can't, this is where a lot of people mess up. They just do this part. They're like, oh yeah, just custom parameters, boom, boom, boom. No, that is wrong. You have to do this part. You have to add this piece of code with a corresponding custom parameter right here. You have to. It's not if, you have to. So make sure you do that. I've seen a lot of people just do it. I've seen campaigns where I'll get them and I'll be auditing them. And I'm like, ooh, boom, you didn't put the source, you didn't put the tracking template at the top. This tells it exactly what to look at. You only did this part. Then you test, right? When you test, that gives you the URL, but you still have to use, right? So it'll actually say like, this is the official URL for this particular, incorporating all these events and everything. And it'll actually spit it out on the side, right? However, you still need to use, my friends, you still need to use GTM preview mode to feed it back to GA4's debug tool, right? So again, let's kind of talk about this. Okay, so you hit test, right? The test, it'll actually spit out the URL on the side, right? It'll say, okay, this is the new URL and it'll look exactly like a URL with these particular custom parameters. You take that URL, you put it back into a preview link within GTM, right? You turn on GA4 because those are connected, right? So the second those are connected, you're in a testing state, if you will. So what then happens is you drop that URL, the testing URL, into the preview mode, feeds it back into GA4 debug tool, and you get this. This is how you know you're right, because here it says, yep, this is the URL. It's feeding it back, Google Ads, medium search. Exactly. You did it right. This is how, my friends, you know you're doing it right, because, and this actually, you should always test this stuff, my friends, when you're doing this, because that's exactly where these other buyers messed up. That's how they didn't know, they didn't even test this. So what they did was they launched this shit, didn't include this tracking template, and boom, they thought they were getting UTM parameters or custom parameters when they weren't getting jack. So they never even tested it. So that's garbage. So that's how you know. So you remember, my friends, it's not enough just to put in the tracking template and do this. You have to test to make sure this stuff's appearing. Cool. And then, of course, one thing I want to say with Facebook, what's really cool, you don't even have to do this. You just basically within the UTM part at the very bottom, you click in, it'll say URL parameters, click that. Then you click in campaign type, campaign parameters, source, all that stuff. And you don't even have to do this much. You just click and tell it which one you want. And that's what I'm talking about. Because I think what the grand design here is, instead of feeding it also as a UTM code for site serve, I think it's going back versus server based. That's where I think this comes in, which is beautiful. That's really cool. So that means what I'm betting is that the platforms understand UTMs are being removed by Apple, by the iOS 14.5, iOS 17 updates. So my guess is they're trying to also do this on a server-based allocation, which is very smart. So that's it for this. I just want to give that UTM update. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I will actually make a Medium article on this. as well as any other, I'll definitely turn this into a podcast. One other thing I want to talk about is the live show that I'll be doing. I'll probably start out once every 2 weeks or so and see how that goes. But if anybody wants to show up, that'd be great. Just subscribe. I'll make sure you get a link, and I'll actually promote it as a YouTube post. So more to come on that, or just feel free to reach out to me. So thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate you.